Deep within human existence lies an eternal striving for perfection, for that very summit around which our entire lives are structured. Each of us, consciously or subconsciously, chooses for ourselves the highest value, be it dazzling wealth, enviable social status, universal recognition, fleeting happiness, sensual pleasures, all-consuming love, profound knowledge, or serene comfort. Many mistakenly believe that power is merely the ability to manipulate others, to subjugate them to one's will for the sake of satisfying one's own selfish needs and desires. However, as Nietzsche argued, true power lies not in this. For him, the desire to control others is often merely a manifestation of hidden weakness, a deeply rooted inferiority complex. He wrote, "The will of the weak to represent some form of superiority, their instinct for circuitous paths to tyranny over the healthy, wherever this is not discovered, this will to power of the weakest." Instead of striving for power as a Machiavellian control over those around us, Nietzsche urged us to seek the power that is born and blossoms within us. This power, in his view, is equivalent to growth and expansion, as he put it in The Gay Science. Modern philosopher John Richardson, in turn, defined it as the intensification of an ability or activity that is already given. But what does this mean in practice? How can we develop within ourselves this inner strength, this will to power, that will allow us to become better, stronger, and realize our potential to the fullest? The answer to this question lies in the depths of Nietzsche's philosophy, and his understanding can radically change your life. Like an athlete building strength, or a writer perfecting style, an orator honing the art of persuasion, and a teacher expanding the horizons of teaching, all strive for mastery, for expanding the boundaries of their abilities. In his work, Nietzsche's Values, John Richardson deeply analyzes the Nietzschean understanding of power, which is not simply increasing lifespan or multiplying benefits, but above all, elevating potential and strengthening control over one's own destiny. Power, according to Nietzsche, is ascending to a new stage of development, relentless self-overcoming, where the meaning of existence lies not in simple expansion, but in constant growth and strengthening of the spirit, in an ascent that requires abandoning former notions of oneself. In Nietzsche's legacy, one can find valuable guidance on how to achieve this higher power. The first step on this path is to define a goal that meets 4 crucial criteria. Firstly, this goal must be filled with deep meaning and represent a challenge. Secondly, it must contribute to strengthening health and well-being, both personal and that of others. Thirdly, the goal should be aimed at achieving personal perfection. And finally, it must be chosen independently, reflecting the individuality and genuine aspirations of the person. As Nietzsche himself noted in his unpublished notes, the question of the purpose of humanity should not occupy the minds of individuals. It is far more important that each person ask themselves, what is my purpose in life? And if there is no clear answer, it is necessary to immediately define for oneself high and noble goals, worthy of aspiration. Once a goal that meets certain criteria is found, the next step on the path to achieving power becomes dedicating time to its realization daily. In the process, obstacles and resistance will inevitably arise. Self-doubt, fear, anxiety, and laziness will haunt the goal seeker. Lack of time or resources, doubts and criticism from others, as well as health or personal life problems, can slow progress. However, in the context of striving for power, all these obstacles and resistance represent a valuable opportunity for growth. Overcoming them, expanding the boundaries of one's mind and body, one increases one's power and influence. Resistance plays an important role for the power seeker, just as a strong opponent is important for an ambitious warrior. Just as a warrior becomes more experienced and skilled in battles with a worthy opponent, so resistance serves as a catalyst, prompting a person to develop their abilities and overcome weaknesses. As Nietzsche noted, Friedrich Nietzsche argued that the will to power manifests only in opposition, in the search for resistance. Any expansion, growth, or inclusion implies a struggle with something that offers resistance. A strong personality needs this resistance, and actively seeks it out. Participating in this game of resistance and victory, as Nietzsche called it, where overcoming an obstacle is immediately replaced by a new challenge, one increases one's power and approaches the goal. However, according to Nietzsche's philosophy, the final step on the path to power lies in leaving behind what has been achieved and striving for a new, higher goal. Whatever I create, however much I love it, I must soon oppose it, and my love, Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, emphasizing the will to power's constant striving for self-overcoming. In essence, one who strives for power should not destroy the fruits of their labor or harbor hatred for their former attachments. Rather, they must transcend them. Their insatiable thirst for power drives them to believe that any, even the most outstanding achievement, any conquered goal, ceases to satisfy their ambitions. An agent obsessed with the pursuit of power craves not triumph per se, but rather the process of triumphing. They need new, unexplored, perhaps more grandiose challenges. This explains why the pursuit of power manifests itself in the form of constant growth and self-overcoming, as Bernard Regenster notes in his work The Affirmation of Life. In The Will to Power, Nietzsche explains that the pursuit of power has no ultimate goal, except perhaps the joy of the process itself. This process is a continuous cycle, choosing a goal, overcoming obstacles and resistance, building power, achieving the desired, and then abandoning one's creations and achievements for a new iteration of the cycle. If a person builds their life around the pursuit of power, there is no moment, except for death, when they cease to participate in this cycle. Consequently, such a life has no final goal, unless, as Nietzsche argued, we consider the goal to be the joy or great happiness that spontaneously arises as a side effect of the constant increase in our power. Friedrich Nietzsche, the shocking philosopher, once stated, "What is happiness? The feeling that power increases, that resistance is overcome." In another work, he adds that joy is merely a symptom of the feeling of achieved power, which one does not directly seek, but which accompanies them as a reward for overcoming obstacles. The ethics of power developed by Nietzsche has a profound impact on the worldview of modern humans, offering a unique solution to the age-old problem of suffering. This problem lies in the fundamental human need for justification or meaning in suffering. Otherwise, a person becomes vulnerable to nihilism, universal weariness, and corrosive hatred of life. Nietzsche clearly articulates this problem, noting that man, the bravest and most accustomed to suffering creature, does not reject suffering as such. On the contrary, he desires it, even seeks it, but only if the meaning and purpose of this suffering are revealed to him. It is the meaninglessness of suffering, not suffering itself, that is the curse weighing on humanity. Throughout human history, various religious, philosophical, and political systems have attempted to find a solution to the problem of suffering, asserting that the reality in which we suffer is merely a transient stage on the path to another, better reality, to the true world where suffering is minimized or completely absent. Examples of such true worlds include religious heavens or socio-political utopias allegedly awaiting us on the historical horizon. Such worldviews seek to imbue suffering with meaning, instilling the idea that by enduring present torments, one will find redemption in the future in a reality free from suffering. However, the fatal flaw of these supposed panaceas lies in their tendency to diminish the significance of earthly reality and the present moment in favor of some other reality or future moment, whose existence must be taken on faith. As Nietzsche once insightfully remarked, the concept of the afterworld, of the true world, was invented for the sole purpose of devaluing the one world we have, depriving our earthly reality of any purpose, reason, or task. In contrast, Nietzschean ethics of power offers a more practical approach to the problem of suffering. If we assert that power is the highest human value, the value that most contributes to individual flourishing, then we must also highly value resistance, for it is resistance that provides us with the chance to increase our power. Suffering arises from resistance, it is the feeling of pain or torment caused by being obstructed. Therefore, if we cherish power, then we must also cherish suffering, for it is an integral component of power. Or, as Nietzsche himself explains, in the philosophical concept presented by Nietzsche in The Will to Power, it is argued that the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of suffering are not the defining motives of human behavior. The true aspiration of humans lies in increasing their power. In this context, people actively seek resistance, something that will oppose their will. Displeasure, therefore, becomes not merely an undesirable experience, but a necessary element stimulating the will to power. One does not avoid it, but constantly needs it as a challenge to be overcome. Nietzsche's philosophy does not demand blind faith and does not call for reliance on external forces, be it God, scientific achievements, political leaders, or ideologies. It offers a compelling and realistic approach to the problem of suffering. This approach promotes an active and meaningful life, serving as an antidote to the passivity that has gripped modern society. By participating in the circle of power, in the continuous process of self-overcoming, one contributes to the realization of one's potential and the achievement of the great happiness and great health that are the privilege of those striving for power. Friedrich Nietzsche, a prominent philosopher, argued that true pleasure arises from the feeling of power. In his understanding, happiness is the triumphant realization of one's own strength and ability to conquer. This idea is reflected in his work, The Will to Power, where he explores the deep motives of human behavior and aspirations. In another of his famous works, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche reveals another important facet of his worldview. He writes that life itself is a constant overcoming. This means that development and growth are impossible without challenges and struggles. Life, according to the philosopher, entrusts man with the secret of the eternal striving for perfection and self-overcoming.